So here is a little loop that I made of a crazy little guy jiggling and shaking. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I put this together. This is just in Rough Animator as a simple app that you can get for iOS that can do lots of fun stuff, and you can work in layers. That's the main thing that's really nice about Rough Animator. And let me just show you here, first of all, for the beginnings of creating a loop, you need to have something that's like an underlayer that will let you create a hookup. So that red line that you see is actually just the reference image, and I keep that on throughout the entire loop, and this loop I think is around 18 frames. So that lets me keep seeing where I've got to come back to as far as hooking up in my loop. So I'm going to turn that off though for now, and I'm going to turn all the other layers back on right now. Oops, except that background, because I don't really like those backgrounds. Let me get these guys off and put these guys back on. I'm just going to play it again. So the way I approach this that could be useful for you is, rather than trying to create all the different parts of the animation all at once, I figured out what the action was going to be, which was he's just going to bend his knees, stretch and squash a little bit, jitter his arms, and then do some fun things with his features. And so the way I approached that was, the first thing that I did was actually the head. So here's his head. I turned everything else off, or actually I had nothing else on, and I actually just animated the head. So if I turn off all the other layers, and you'll have to bear with me because I don't think I can turn them off and on all at once, so I'm gonna have to, oops, I left his nose on. Where does nose go? There's his nose. There's all that. Let's see. And this will just give you a sense of how I approached it to begin with. So that's it. But I did leave the hookup layer on, which is here. Okay, and I used onion skinning as needed. And I just did this straight ahead. I didn't do any in-betweens or any key poses. I just went straight ahead to do this because it was just going to be some big masses. And you'll see there's no line on this. I just used big masses because they're fun to animate. They're fun to move around, and it's just less, just more fun. It's more organic when you just animate without a line. Just big shapes of colors. So that's what I did first. I got the head working correctly. And then after I animated the head, I went on to the body. Okay, so now everything is kind of in relation to each other, and that's starting to make more sense for it as an actual character. So the head is squashing and stretching, and the body is connecting. But again, I've got them on separate layers. So because of that, I'm able to work on them independently, and if I make any mistakes, then I can obviously just fix it on that individual layer. So after the head and the body, what did I do next? I think I did legs. Where'd my legs go? I give my layers funny names, so you might be seeing weird names for my layers there. Here you go. And then feet. Feet I tried to keep locked down in place, so it looks like it's standing in place. I didn't worry about it too much though, because I wanted the whole thing to kind of have like an organic feel to it and just have a lot of fun energy with it. And then after that, I just kept working on the different layers and the different shapes. So now here it is with arms. And the arms I did first as the arms and the hands, and then I went back and added in the fingers. Those little dangly fingers, I actually did those as a separate pass, but on the same layer. So I just made sure I got the arms and hands looking good first, and then I went back and actually drew on the little fingers that are on there. Again, that's another little tip. Rather than trying to do every detail, just go for big shapes first, and then you can always go back and add things in. And there's the mouth, there's the gums, there's the teeth, and then eyes are really fun. Remember, your audience is always going to be looking at the eyes, so that's an old animator's trick, and you should definitely take advantage of that, because audiences are always going to enjoy looking at the eyes and laugh at funny eyes. So I wanted to make these to be googly and silly, and I gave them that yellowish green outline to give them even more emphasis. And then I added the nose. I think I did the nose last. And even the nose, you'll notice there's some squash and stretch going on with the nose. And when the head stretches, I stretch the nose. And then I'm doing other things too, like sort of follow through and overlapping action. And those are more complex principles of animation, but they're a lot easier to play with, again, if you're working in separate layers. So by having all of your artwork on different layers as you animate, it really lets you have a lot of freedom and play around with a lot of different things. So that's an important trick to use when you are creating fun animation. And then the last thing I did actually was play around with my frame rate. So here it is at 12 frames per second, and this is how I animated it at. I like to animate on 12 frames per second. So there it is at 12. That's fun, but I thought by speeding it up, it made it a little bit crazier. And so this again is the kind of thing you can always sort of play with afterwards. Let's see what it looks like at 20 frames per second. Ooh, that's pretty fun too. Maybe I should have shared this at 20 frames per second. Oh well, I could always, I guess, do that again. But frame rate is something you can play with afterwards, but it is good to get in the habit of animating at a certain frame rate, and 12 frames per second is a pretty safe frame rate to work at. There you go. Hope that's useful and fun. So go make some fun animation.